Hi there, my name is Lottie and welcome to my channel and welcome to the first of my Throne of Glass reading vlog series. This is the first time I am reading this series, so I really wanted to document it to just see my thoughts and also how I, as a 23-year-old, experienced this series for the first time. Throne of Glass is obviously a really popular series by Sarah J. Maas. It was the first series that she started to publish. I have read the A Court of Thorns and Roses series by her, which I do really enjoy. I most recently read A Court of Silver Flames, which if you've seen my March wrap-up, you'll know that I rated it quite highly and I had a really good time reading it. So I'm going to be vlogging and documenting all my thoughts and opinions on each book in the Throne of Glass series, all 8 of them. That includes the Assassin's Blade and Tower of Dawn. I'm going to be reading them in publication order, so I'm going to be starting with Throne of Glass, then Crown of Midnight, Heir of Fire, then the Assassin's Blade, Queen of Shadows, Empire of Storms, then Tower of Dawn, and then Kingdom of Ash, which is obviously the last one. So last night I did start the first book, Throne of Glass. I am liking it so far. I only got about 50 pages in at the moment, but I thought this would be a good point to stop and sort of give my first initial thoughts. So obviously the writing style is a little bit, I don't want to say juvenile, but it isn't quite as sophisticated, I guess, as let's say A Court of Silver Flames, which is the most recent publication, because that series obviously for adults and it's new adult, whereas this is more young adult, especially I think in the beginning of the series. This is more of a young adult series. So in the first 50 pages, we're obviously introduced to the main character, Selena. My first initial impression of her is that she's a little bit, not bitchy, but she definitely has this wall up. She doesn't want to let people in, but which is understandable because she's a prisoner. But I like her sass. There's a quote on page 26 that I really liked where she's talking to Kale, I think his name is. She says, "Yes, but becoming the world's most famous assassin is..." He didn't respond. "You might ask me how I did it." And Kale says, "Did what?" And she says, "Became so talented and famous so quickly," which did make me chuckle a little bit. I'm quite liking the introduction to the setting and the, I guess, trial thing that she's going to be doing so that she can be the king's official assassin or whatever it is to win. I'm kind of hoping it'll be a bit like the Hunger Games or Divergent or Nevernight, where it's training for something, where it's a series of trials, it's being in a school competition-y type setting, if you know what I mean. If you've read any of those books, you probably know what I'm talking about. So that sort of vibe, I hope it's a bit like that. I do feel the first 50 pages it was quite slow. I know it's obviously starting to introduce the world to us and who the characters are and what the hell's going on. I'm 50 pages in and nothing has happened yet, and I know this is a 400-page book, but it's all they've done is go to this palace place. And yeah, there's also this discussion of magic and fae and they've all died out, or or have they? And it's also talking about Selena is one of them, or has magic in her blood that's dormant or something, which I think is going to be a really major thing in later books in the series, or maybe it'll come up later in this particular book. So I'm really interested to see what happens with that. So yeah, I am liking it so far. I just hope that the pace picks up a little bit as I get further through the book. Good morning everyone, I have another reading update for you for Throne of Glass. I read another 50 or so pages last night. I did want to read more, but I was literally so exhausted that I just was sitting in bed and I nearly passed out. So in the last 50 pages, Selena has basically started her training for this competition, and it's introduced us to a bunch of more characters. There's this Princess Nehemia Itzko of Elwi, literally I don't even know how to pronounce any of those names, who I think might become a major player later on. She's apparently some sort of rebel character, secret rebel, because I think the people of Elwi were the slaves that she met when she was in the salt mines, sort of just before the start of the book. And then there's been some banter between her and Kale, flirtatious stuff. I have a feeling there's going to be a romantic triangle. What's it called? A romantic triangle? That's not what it's called. A love triangle, oh my god. I have a feeling there is going to be a love triangle between Selena, Kale and the prince, whatever his name is. I liked finding out that Selena loves to read. It kind of reminds me of how Feyre in the Akatar series loves to paint. It's Sarah J Maas picks a hobby for her characters, like her main characters, and like they love to do that. So I kind of like that Selena loves to read as well, because obviously like I love to read as well. Yeah, the last like 50 pages is sort of just like explaining the competition, how it's going to work, and then starting training for it. I didn't really understand why when they first entered like the training room, Selena was dueling with Kale. Like I didn't really get that. Like, is that how it's going to work? Like they're training with their guard? Like that doesn't really make sense. Oh, and Selena was talking about how it was very dangerous to just leave like all those weapons out there for people to just use, and obviously they're all like criminals, murderers, so I feel like something bad is going to happen. The format of how this training, the trials and things like that, really, yeah, I think it's going to be a little bit like Diversion or even like Nevernight, so I'm really excited for that, and I hope that the pace picks up a little bit more and we see more of that happening, because it has still been quite slow. Like I'm literally a quarter of the way through the book and I feel like we've finally gotten to a place where things are going to start happening. A little slow start, but I'm excited to read more. Hey guys, it is now Friday. I have another reading update for you. Last night I read about 100 pages of Throne of Glass. So I'm about halfway through. Things have started really picking up. Things started to get a little bit more interesting. Selena found this like tunnel hidden in her room, which I feel like she would have found earlier if she was like searching the entire place for an escape route, but you know, never mind. Maybe it appeared magically later on. So she found this tunnel, and there's like this thing with a character called Elena, who's like the first queen of like this place where she is, and is she like half fairy or something? So there's like this whole plot line going on. She's been given this task that she has to find something in the castle, and I was like, okay, things are starting to get a little bit more interesting now. I'm a little bit disappointed though that the like assassin trials champion thing isn't quite as prominent in the story as I thought it was going to be. So I love like assassin school training scenarios in books. I don't know why, but I just do. So I'm a little bit disappointed that's not quite as prominent. Like it's sort of a back burner to this main thing that's now been introduced to the story, but it's like it took half of the book for us to get to this point. So a bunch of the fellow assassin champion people being murdered, and we don't know who is doing it, so I'm kind of like putting in my bets now. It's either going to be Kane, Knox, or the really unsuspecting one. What's his name? So I think that the murderer is either going to be Knox, who is like becoming friends with Selena, so I'm a bit suspicious of him. Kane, who would be the obvious choice, or Pelor, who's the like unsuspecting one, like the weakling. I feel like it's going to be one of those three, or it's going to be whatever this like mystical creature is in the castle that's supposedly like this great threat that Selena has been tasked with like finding and defeating. So we'll see if I was right, I guess, at the end of the vlog when I finish the book. There's not been a lot of like romance so far. There has been a lot of flirting between Selena and Dorian and Selena and Kale. I kind of like the contrast between Dorian and Kale, because obviously they're like best friends, and then Kale is a more like broody, moody guy, and then Dorian is a bit more like he's a ladies' man, he's really flirtatious. There was a scene where Selena had just come back from the tunnels and she was like in bed. I thought she was pretending to be asleep, but she must have actually been asleep. And Dorian went to go see her and was just watching her sleep, and then Kale was like arrived and was like, what the hell are you doing? And then Kale was then like watching her sleep and gave her this ring, and I was like, it's kind of creepy that these two dudes just randomly decided to go visit this woman while she was asleep. And yeah, she's meant to be this really badass assassin, but it's a bit like, guys, can you like give us some space? But like still a bit confused though, because all the people that are competing to be the king's champion, they're meant to be like thieves and murderers and like just general bad people, and yet I feel like they're allowed to just roam the castle whenever they want. Surely they should be like under lock and key. It's a little bit conflicting in that sense. Selena keeps just hanging out with that princess, I can't remember her name, which is great because she's making friends, but again, like, if she's this terrible assassin, yeah, she's like a front that she's just like a jewel thief, but if she's meant to be this terrible assassin, surely like she shouldn't be just allowed to roam the castle whenever she wants. Yeah, I'm really liking the banter between Kale and Selena. So there's a quote on page 121. Selena says to Kale, "Are you done being smug?" And then Kale says, "Are you done vomiting your guts up?" And then she says something else and then goes, "I'll just vomit all over you instead." And it's
And then he says, if you can catch me. And I thought it was quite cute as well. Like, I know it was a bit creepy he was just watching her, but when he gave her the ring, that was quite cute. So I don't know, like, who I'm supposed to root for in terms of a relationship. I don't know if anything will come of a relationship, but I do think they're like the two main love interests in this story. Like I said, it is Friday, so I'm hoping to finish the book over the weekend. I do have about 200 pages left, so if I read 100 pages today and 100 pages on Saturday, then I'll finish it before Sunday. But I'm not going to rush myself. I'm quite enjoying it, so I want to take it at a good pace. At the halfway point, I would say this is like a 3/3.5 star for me. There's nothing about it that's really like blowing me out the water. It's pretty average read for me. A general fantasy. There's nothing about it that's too spectacular. I'm really intrigued by the whole fae and magic plot line and this thing with like the word marks. I'm quite intrigued by all of that, so I'm hoping that becomes a little bit more prominent, at least in time for the next book. This is obviously just the first book in like an 8-book series, so this is obviously only introducing things to us. It is quite like info dumpy when it is giving you background information. I'm just attributing that to it being like a young adult. That tends to be something you see quite a lot in young adult. I feel the same way, crying child. Oh, yeah, and there was another thing. I've been quite like surprised that everyone in the castle seems to be really appalled that they're finding the like competitors in this competition like murdered and them being like just turning up dead. This is a competition to be the king's assassin. What do they expect? Especially when they basically just let people roam the castle whenever they want. I assume they're meant to be in bed by a certain time and like they have guards posted outside their doors. They're training to be a murderer. Come on. Like, I can suppose for like maybe the prince or some princesses or like ladies of the court it would be quite appalling, but Kale, who is captain of the guard, like, really? Are you really that shocked that people are being murdered in a competition for murderers? But yeah, like I said, where I stand right now, I think it's about a 3.5 star read. I'm hoping I will bump it up to a 4 star the further I get through. This is obviously only the halfway point, but I'm looking forward to see what happens as I go further along. I completely forgot I wanted to mention that the way they were describing the character Elena was making me think of the illustration of Selena on the cover. And also the name Elena is very similar to Selena, and I'm thinking like, are they meant to be the same person, or is Elena like an ancestor to Selena or something? So, I'm calling it now. If I'm completely like wrong, that's fine, but I'm calling it now, halfway through Throne of Glass, Selena is actually Elena.
So it's Monday. I didn't finish Throne of Glass this weekend. I don't know what it is, but this month I've been in such a reading slump. Like, everything that I've been reading, even the stuff that I've enjoyed reading, I've just not felt like picking anything up. Okay, so I read like 100 pages this weekend, so I've still got like 100 pages left. The footage you would have just seen was a time lapse of me reading, and I don't think I'm going to be using the time lapse feature again. It's too fast. You couldn't see my reaction. Basically, during that little clip, I read Selena and Dorian's first kiss. It was so cute. I actually really loved it. There's been a lot of speculation with who is killing all the competitors in the competition. It's sort of been established that there's some sort of ritual thing going on to summon a creature, and Selena thought it was her friend Nehemia. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce her name. So she thought it was her. I was thinking, this has got to be a red herring, surely. And then I was thinking, is it Parrington, who's that duke that is like betrothed to Caltaine? Because there was a scene where I think Dorian was like at dinner with him, or Kale was at dinner with him, and his eyes kept going like black. Oh my god. The cat. So I'm thinking maybe he could be something to do with it. Is he possessed or something? But I literally got to the chapter where it's basically just revealed who is doing the summoning, and it's Cain. And I'm literally like on page 312. Selena's just gone into the tunnels again to try and find out what's going to happen because she thinks she's next. It says, inside the small chamber, kneeling before a darkness so black that it seemed poised to devour the world, was Cain. So that literally stopped there, so I don't know anything beyond that at this point. My thoughts I'm a little disappointed that the person doing all of this was the obvious choice, but also I'm still kind of hoping there is someone else like bigger than all of this who's like pulling the strings with Kane. But it does make sense if it would be Kane because he's like been getting bigger and more powerful, I guess, throughout the competition. So he's been like absorbing, I guess, the energies of the other competitors so he can beat Selena. If I'm being honest, Selena's meant to be like the best assassin in the world, right? We have not seen any of that energy in this first book. I'm assuming if I'd read Assassin's Blade first, I would have seen some of that. So maybe I should have read Assassin's Blade first, but I figured I'd start with Throne of Glass since it is the chronological first book in the series. So yeah, they're like hyping up Selena to be like the best fighter, best assassin, and we've not seen that in like any of the trials because the trials aren't on page usually. It's just like, oh, I have a trial coming up, and then a few days later she's like at a ball and like the trials happen. But I'm a little bit disappointed that Kane is the one doing all of this because it was the obvious choice. So I'm still holding out for like maybe it is like Parrington or someone else. Not heard any more about my theory that like Elena and Selena are like the same person or related or anything. I'm kind of feeling like that's not going to be touched on because I feel like it was a really outlandish theory, but you know, never know. But yeah, I've got like about 100 pages left still. I'm hoping to try and finish it this week. The thing is, I hope to read 8 books this month. This is my 5th book. This is my 6th book. So if I want to reach my reading goal of 8 and it's like the 26th today, I'd have to like finish this and then read 2 short books.
Who's my baby? Harriet. She's a bit camera shy. Hey. Hello. Hello.
I'm just watching a Books and Lala video at the moment, and then I'm going to do some work stuff today. And all weekend we've just been doing house things. Saturday was like a complete blur. I can't remember what I did. Oh yeah, I cleaned the house on Saturday. Very exciting. And then yesterday we spent pretty much all day stripping wallpaper, and I was absolutely exhausted because I was wanting to read and I just couldn't bring myself to pick up anything. So I'm hoping that I'll have a bit more energy this evening to get some reading done. Okay, this is going to be a bit chaotic. So it is now Thursday the 29th of April. I can't remember what day I started reading Throne of Glass on, but it's been like a week. It took me a while to finish and get through it. Not because I wasn't enjoying the book, I think I was just feeling slumpy in general. I've had a lot going on in my personal life that's just made me feel really anxious and like not wanting to concentrate on books. But last night I was like really panicking over something, and I just thought, you know what, I'm just gonna sit and try and read, and it really helped me calm down, which is like great. I love that for me. But yeah, sorry if I look a bit bedraggled. I had like a trial shift thing at a new job today, which I'm really hoping I get it. So by the time you see this video, I'll probably have already heard whether or not I got the job, but keep your fingers crossed for me. But yeah, anyway, last night I did finish Throne of Glass. I think I'm going to be re-rating it a 3.5 star. There's nothing against it. It's just, I think I'd really hyped it up in my head and it just wasn't what I expected. I don't really know what I expected from it. I think because I've come from reading the ACOTAR series, I was expecting a lot more romance in it, and this is not a fantasy romance series. This is just like a normal high fantasy, epic fantasy series. But I am definitely going to be continuing, which is a good thing because obviously I just bought the entire box set of all the books and that would have been a complete waste of money. I'm trying to think of like what my final thoughts are. I didn't plan anything. I haven't even because I keep like a journal of the books that I've read so that I can just look at like what I thought about them. I don't really know what I would have to say about Throne of Glass. It was just okay. It didn't blow me away. I didn't hate it. I felt like the big reveal with Kane being the one who was like summoning this creature that killed all the other contestants, and basically Kane being the one to kill the other contestants, I thought it was a bit predictable. I had obviously predicted like who I thought was going to be the person, and I thought maybe it would be Pelor, who must have left the competition, but there was literally no mention of that. I don't even know if he got murdered. He literally just disappeared from the book. There was Nox, who I predicted who was becoming friends with Selena, who I thought was going to be a red herring
type character where it's like, is he really her friend? Instead ending up being Nehemia, which I think is how you pronounce the name, I'm not sure, I'm really sorry. With her being the red herring about who was killing everyone, I just didn't believe it. I don't know how Sarah J Maas expected us to believe that Selena believed that. She just it never even occurred to me that she could be the one. Obviously she like knew a bit about word marks and she was lying about her accent, which was still never really explained. I just didn't find that believable. I did like how the king was in on it the whole time. I liked that. And with Perrington, who was like the Duke, and then Caltaine, who was like engaged to the Duke, I feel really bad for her. I think she's going to come back into the series later on. I feel like she's going to be like maybe not a major player, but I think she's going to be back. But I did feel a bit like if the king was in on it the whole time and he wanted Kane to win, what was the point of the competition? Like, why didn't he just say, I want Kane to be my new champion, like I'm gonna hire Kane on the sly as my assassin? Why did he need to do that? Did he need the competition to like get Kane to absorb like, all the strength and stuff of the other contestants? Maybe that's why. Maybe he needed Kane for that, to absorb all their strength and stuff so that he would be more powerful than just like his normal self. So maybe that was why. Obviously there was a little bit of romance in this. It's very clear that there's going to be a love triangle between Selena, Kale and Dorian. Selena has basically said she doesn't want to be in a relationship with Dorian if she's working for the king because she just doesn't think it's professional, and obviously she's thinking about her freedom over a relationship with him. Good for you, Selena. Honestly, don't do nothing for a man. I don't know who I would want her to end up with in the end. I would like her to end up with someone and have that happily ever after, because I do see that, because this is a Sarah J Maas series after all. But at the same time, like, you don't have to be in a relationship to be happy. But I would like to see her explore her relationship with Dorian more. I don't think that this is the end for them, but who knows, maybe in book 2 like there's more Kale Selena action. I don't really like ship her with either of them in particular, so I'm happy with like whatever direction she goes in, unless one of them does something really scandalous and makes you hate them. Like with Tamlin. I love how at the very start of the ACOTAR series everyone's like rooting for Tamlin, and then a Court of Mist and Fury happens and it's like, Tamlin go die in a hole. So I don't know, maybe something like that will happen in this series. But obviously I think, is it Tower of Dawn? I think that's the book that follows Kale's perspective, so probably something like that won't happen. Who knows? Yeah, I am really interested to see where this series goes. I quite liked that the way that this book wrapped up, it could easily just be a standalone story, but it does leave you with like, okay, what's going to happen next? So yeah, like the last sort of couple of lines of the book are, she looked at his golden brown eyes and all of the promises that lay within them, and linked her arm with his as she smiled. Tell me tomorrow. I quite liked that. So it's sort of like we're going to find out what her first mission is going to be, and it's just sort of letting you speculate on how she's going to get on with that. I think the next book's going to start with her having done a few missions already. I'm assuming anyone who watches this video has read the book. This has obviously been completely spoiler filled. That's the point of me vlogging, like my reading this series. It's for me to document like my thoughts and feelings and how I get on with it. I quite like the hints at Selena's backstory. I've tried to like put a little tab in for every time something's mentioned about something from her past, because when I get to the Assassin's Blade I want to sort of pick up on those hints about her past so that I can see what actually happened like in the full story. Part of me wishes I had read the Assassin's Blade first, but I don't think that's going to be a good introduction to the vibe of the world and the characters in general. Like, this is obviously the first book that was written for the series, so I think it's a good introduction to who the main characters are and like what the general scenario is and what's going on politically and what the situation with all the magic is. Obviously the Assassin's Blade is like Selena's backstory, and I'm assuming it's just like things that have happened before she went to the salt mines. So obviously I've not read it, so I don't know what I thought it's like a series of novellas, isn't it? So I don't know what they're about, but I'm assuming it's just telling you about things in Selena's past, which is obviously like the natural place to start because that's what happened chronologically. But I don't think I would have been as invested in the series or as intrigued if I'd started with what is essentially just a backstory book. When I read Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shauna Maguire, that's like a backstory book about Jack and Jill, and I liked it, but I wasn't that into it as I thought I would be, so I feel like I might have had the same sort of feelings if I'd read The Assassin's Blade first. So I'm going to still read The Assassin's Blade. Is it after Heir of Fire? I don't know what order I'm going to read Tower of Dawn in yet, because I've watched a few videos where they recommend you read it before you read Emperor of Storms rather than after, because it was publish after, especially because I think it's like with the momentum of the series, like the momentum might slow down. I've also seen like you can read them at the same time. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm not doing that. I don't want to skip Tower of Dawn. I'm definitely not going to be doing that, but I do feel like if Empire Storms has a good momentum set up for the final book, I don't want to lose that momentum by reading Tower of Dawn after it. But I have read a lot of the Song of Ice and Fire books. I've only got like one left, but I've got the editions where some of them are split into two. So like, I've read that series where a lot of what happens in that series does happen simultaneously with the fourth book in that series. I think that happens at the same time as the last book, but also some of it overlaps with the third book, so it's really complicated. So the fact that the Tower of Dawn and Emperor of Storms happen at the same time, I don't mind that, and I don't think I would lose that momentum necessarily, because I didn't feel like that when I read A Feast for Crows. Yeah, I guess I'm just glad about what? I'm glad I finished it. I'm glad I finished it before the end of the month. I really didn't think I was going to do it. I think I mentioned earlier in the video that I had planned to read 8 books this month. Yeah, that's not going to happen. This is my 6th book of April, so that was pretty good. That means I'm on par with what I read last month. And I have started a novella, so I should hopefully be able to finish that by the end of the month, which is obviously tomorrow. Like I said, 3.5 stars. I did sort of feel like that right from the beginning, so I'm hoping things pick up. It's obviously, this is Sarah J Maas's like first book. Not that debut novels are bad, but they're not going to be as well written as when they've had lots of practice. That's just how a skill works. I'm a little bit like, because I've just recently read A Court of Silver Flames, which is her most recent book. So in terms of the level of writing, it's like Silver Flames is here, Throne of Glass is here. But the story itself is interesting, and I'm really intrigued to find out where it goes. I did learn that this is supposed to be a Cinderella retelling, which I have never heard before, but once I learned of that, I can see it, because there's a prince that she falls in love with. There's a fairy godmother, which I'm assuming is the Elena character. Also, my theory about Elena, I feel like that was really out there. Like, I don't think it's that crazy. Sarah J Maas would think of something that crazy and stupid. But who knows, you know, Selena, Elena, described as looking like this. Come on. Come on. You tell me you didn't see it. Tell me you didn't think of that as well. I suppose there is like a ball in it, but I think rather than her going to the ball, it's more her going to assassin school thing. Because I suppose she's taken from the salt mine, so that's like her being taken away from when Cinderella's taken away from her evil stepmother, and the prince going to find her, that's like when the prince in Cinderella is going on and having everyone try on this stupid shoe. I can sort of see it, but to say it's a Cinderella retelling I think is a bit out there, and I don't know if it was ever marketed as that, because I've never heard that before. And also I found out that Sarah J Maas started writing this book when she was 16, which is like so cool. I don't think there is anything else in particular that I have to say about it. It was okay. I don't know when I'm going to be reading Crown of Midnight, but I will be doing a whole vlog just for Crown of Midnight. I'm going to do that with every single book of the series. Yeah, I suppose that's the end of the vlog then. So thank you so much for watching and for putting up with me ramble about this book for however long this video is. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And also, if you would like to see what I think about the rest of the books in the Throne of Glass series and some of the bookish content, please feel free to subscribe. And yeah, I guess that's everything. So I will see you in the next one.